WJZ 5 starts right now.
This is WJZ TV, Baltimore.
In your community, where you live. Now, it's WJZ, Maryland's news station.
Staying put, the Freddie Gray trials will be held in Baltimore.
Reaction to the ruling and what it means for the case.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Denise Koch, and here's what people are talking about.
A judge denies the defense request to move the trials out of Baltimore. It is a major decision in this case against 6 police officers that is being watched across the nation. WJZ is complete coverage of this key ruling. Christy Aletto is live with reaction from protesters, but we start with WJZ investigator Mike Hugren live at Courthouse East with what this ruling means and how likely it will be to find an impartial jury here in Baltimore. Mike?
Mary, moments ago, lawyers for the defense read a statement where they said they were disappointed in the judge's ruling. But the judge made very clear today that the burden of proof was on them, and he said they had no concrete proof that the entire jury pool was tainted. Trials for all 6 officers charged in connection with Freddie Gray's death will stay in Baltimore. Despite their lawyers' pleas that jurors would be scared to acquit the officers, fearing another riot.
Yes, a lot of people is going to be afraid if they're not found guilty. But the way I look at it is they're going to get a fair trial.
Gray died in April after being taken away in a police transport van. The defense argued the officers have become poster children for people angry at police. But law professor Doug Colbert, who watched the arguments, does not believe they met the high standards they needed to get the trial moved.
It can't be what you believe or think or feel. There's got to be something objective there.
The defense also argued a $6.4 million settlement the city agreed to pay Freddie Gray's family prejudices all taxpayers.
Prospective jurors may very well equate this very large settlement to a finding by city officials that these officers, committed wrongdoing.
Prosecutors brought up the trials of Maryland sniper John Allen Muhammad and the Boston bomber as 2 cases that never had to move despite high community impact and media attention.
There are people who would be fair and block their minds out of everything that they've seen and heard and give a fair trial.
Judge Barry Williams said citizens can think for themselves and not be swayed by publicity. Now, these officers have a big decision to make whether they want a jury to decide their fate or the judge himself. And all of this is coming amid high security. Our partners at The Sun report that overtime for officers today alone cost the city more than $200,000. Mary?
All right, Mike, thank you. Live complete coverage continues right now. Christy Aletto has more on the demonstrations that were held today and how the city is preparing for the trials to be held here in Baltimore. Christy?
Well, Mary, this was the welcome news that many protesters say they had been hoping for, but add this is just a very small victory in a larger fight for justice.
The trial stays here!
It's the soundtrack for Thursday's rally.
The trial stays here!
As a judge rules to keep the cases of the 6 accused officers in the city.
Glory to God, they did the right thing.
Like many out here, Ariana McBride feared the worst.
What do you say to, critics, i.e. the defense, who said the officers wouldn't be able to get a fair trial because of all of this publicity, because of all of these protests?
Nice try, but it didn't work.
Out of the 275,000 people we have that can be on a jury, I think they can find a fair trial for the 6 officers.
Keeping the case local was a priority for activists over 2 weeks of hearings and protests. Police are out in the crowds.
I hope you realize I'm out here because I want to be part of the solution.
But not in riot gear. Only one person is arrested for being in an area that was considered off limits.
Part of treating a protest like a protest is to ensure that a lawful, peaceful protest doesn't go south due to the actions of a small number of people.
In preparation for Thursday's hearing, police brass canceled officers' leave bracing for any outcome.
This is a victory, a minor one at that.
Last week, a judge denied motions to drop the charges against the officers, but ordered them to stand trial separately.
I think it is important that in that context we're able to keep it local so that way we can actually get a fair process for not just the officers, but for the people who feel wrong as a result.
Thursday's hearing is the last before the October trial. Now, the protester arrested has been identified as Ryan Arundel. Police say she was told multiple times to move to an area designated specifically for protesters, but refused. Back to you.
Christy, thank you. And stay with WJZ for complete coverage of the Freddie Gray case as we wait for the trials of the 6 officers to begin.
An update on a story WJZ is first to report. A prominent local pastor is released from jail this afternoon after police charged him with attempting to incite a riot in the wake of last week's hearings in the Freddie Gray case. WJZ is live in West Baltimore. Derek Valcourt talked to Pastor Wesley West just moments ago. He has more on what he's saying about the allegations. Derek?
He is out of jail. He is back here in his church, and he is talking to WJZ. He says he's innocent, and he believes police locked him up just to keep him away from protests at the courthouse on a day they feared there may be more riots.
I'm not an agitator.
Reverend Wesley West of Faith Empowered Ministries, fresh out of jail after police took him into custody Wednesday, more than 1 week after his accused crimes and 1 day before a critical court hearing in the Freddie Gray case.
I think that my influence, me having influence, they did not want me present for today's hearing.
Tell the truth! This WJZ video shows West in the white jeans leading a group of protesters in a march from the courthouse down to the Inner Harbor after last Tuesday's court hearing. Police say this video from their helicopter shows West walking into Pratt Street and slamming his megaphone on the hood of a red pickup truck as he tries to stop traffic. A photographer captured these pictures of the incident, though none of the still photos WJZ obtained show the megaphone striking the vehicle.
He used that megaphone and slammed it on the hood of a vehicle that was coming down the street, caused fear for the driver of that vehicle, actually terrorized the driver of that vehicle.
Do you think you did anything wrong that day?
No. Until they showed me the video of me damaging the car, which I know I did not do, then of course I'm innocent. I put my hand out towards the vehicle to stop. They're telling me the reason why I was just arrested on yesterday was because it took them a week to identify me.
They said you ran. They said you physically ran from the scene. Did you run from the scene?
I did not run from the scene.
In fact, West did stay for a little while.
Now what do we want?
Our cameras were there as he led more of the protest, which now has West facing a number of other charges for his role in blocking traffic. And West insists this will not stop him from taking part in future protests. We're live. Derek Valcourt, WJZ Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you very much, Derek. West, first court hearing in this case is set for October 16th.
Well, the heat is gone, but some of you are dealing with a lot of rain today. Flash flood watches and warnings are posted throughout the state. This was the scene earlier today in North Baltimore, where heavy rain created puddles on the road. Some areas even saw inches of rain. And Bill and Diane in Catonsville sent us these photos of storm damage. They say lightning struck a tree and blew parts of the tree and the bark all over Forest Avenue and their neighbors' lawns. No injuries are reported from that, though. Well, taking a live look outside, the rain has mostly moved out of our area. You can see a little sun peeking through the clouds. WJZ has first warning weather coverage. Tim Williams and Bob Turk are tracking live Doppler radar, rainfall totals, and temperatures. We will start with Bob.
All right, as you saw, some pretty heavy downpours this afternoon. Some areas, 1, 2, as much as 3 inches of rain in a few isolated spots. It's all off to the east of us now, over Delaware and the upper eastern shore and Jersey now. It's all moved off to central Delaware. Still a little bit of light rain around the Annapolis area, but primarily we're looking at the rain pretty much drying out across the region. As you can see, a little bit of activity just south of Cambridge near Ocean City, particularly around Dover and Denton. But to the west of that region, around the city now, really not much going on. And the further west we go, the less rain there is. In fact, there's really nothing going on until we get way out to western Maryland, just a few sprinkles or showers out there. So later tonight, we may see a little bit more rain, but primarily we are seeing seeing the end of this bout of heavy rain. Actually, we needed the rain, believe it or not. Now, we had a flash flood warning that was just lifted for portions of Baltimore City and Baltimore County, and still have for at least to maybe 6 o'clock for eastern sections. Basically, Annapolis area, it has a little flooding downtown Annapolis, Main Street and Compromise Street, and that will be lifted at 6 o'clock. Northeast Maryland still under a flash flood watch as the rain moves through that region. Right now, it's not as heavy as it was earlier today. Tim has a look at those changes we've had in the temperatures over the last couple of days. Tim?
Well, this rain has been really the transition of what we had yesterday and what we can expect really the rest of this evening and into the weekend. We had temperatures sitting right now just around 74 degrees. The average high now for this day is 80 degrees. We started off on the warm side. We have now cooled down very nicely. It's getting breezy out here, so the front continuing to push away. 63 in Oakland right now. The dew point still in the mid-60s, and they'll be dropping as we get into the afternoon. Now, that's 74, 75 degrees in central Maryland. Was 14 degrees warmer this time yesterday. We hit a high yesterday of 94 degrees. Today we're in the 70s. It was 20 degrees warmer this time yesterday than in Hagerstown than currently. Now tomorrow, as that front continues to push away, we'll see some very pleasant and sunny conditions for your Friday, but we do have a secondary front that's going to come through. That will likely bring some showers on Saturday afternoon into the evening and maybe early on Sunday before we start to see some clearing. So we start the weekend off nice, we end the weekend off nice, but that time in the middle could be impacted by another front. Certainly not as much rain we don't expect as what we just had. Bob will have your complete first 20 forecast coming up in just a few moments. For now, sending it back inside.
Tim, thank you. On a day like today, remember to use WJZ's weather app. It has hourly, daily, and extended forecasts and severe weather warnings. Just search WJZ Weather and download the CBS Baltimore app.
A man accused of abducting a woman in Philadelphia before the woman was found in Maryland pleads guilty. Vic is in the newsroom with the sentence he now faces. Vic?
Well, Denise, 37-year-old Delvin Barnes changed his plea from not guilty to guilty today. He could face 35 years in prison. The Virginia man is charged with abducting a 22-year-old woman off of Philadelphia Street last November. Investigators say he hit her in the head with a hammer and threw her into his car. The kidnapping triggered a manhunt. The FBI tracked Barnes to Jessup 3 days later after surveillance footage showed him using the victim's ATM card. Denise, back to you.
All right, thank you, Vic. A sentencing hearing is set for January 6th.
Historic trip. Washington, D.C. leaders are laying the groundwork to keep the Pope and his visit safe. WJZ will be with Pope Francis when he visits Washington, D.C. in less than 2 weeks. Gigi Barnett reports the nation's capital is bracing for some congestion and some huge crowds. Record, I'm sure, Gigi.
That's right, Mary. Well, DC leaders say they're treating this Pope's visit as if it were a presidential inauguration. Crowds will be large and security tight.
Less than 2 weeks to go before the Pope visits the nation's capital. He'll start at the White House with the president. Then he'll be the main attraction in a parade of parishioners. And on this tour, he'll address Congress. The city is the first stop on Pope Francis's first-time U.S. tour. And Washington, D.C. leaders say his time here will cause massive delays in the district. The Pope's expected to draw a crowd that resembles a presidential inauguration.
There's been planning here going on for many weeks and I dare say months around this event. And so we're bringing the same energy and planning that we do to all of the national special security events.
D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser teamed up with her top cop, the Secret Service, and her head of transportation today to roll out their safety plan for the Pope's 2-day stay.
Although I can't discuss the means or methods or specific resources or numbers of personnel we're going to allocate in order to carry out this protective responsibility, I can say there's been a tremendous level and amount of planning.
For parishioners who want to see the Pope up close, some advice: don't drive to the district.
There will be several concert events at the Verizon Center, and we have all the commuter traffic of a typical work week. Transit is still the best mode of transportation.
With this Pope comes a big financial boost to D.C.'s restaurant reservations and hotels. Many are already sold out.
We see those numbers ticking up. So not only will we have people, Washingtonians and people from around this region, but we expect that people will come from out of town.
And the Archdiocese says spectators will not need tickets to see the parade on September 23rd, but they will have to pass through security, and food and drink are not allowed. Now, if you'd like to watch the Pope address Congress, which is also on the 23rd, the Archdiocese says it will set up a jumbo video screen on the National Mall. Mary, back to you.
So you can put out a blanket and kick back and
Picnic.
watch it. Gigi, thank you. Stay with WJZ for complete coverage as Pope Francis visits the U.S. in less than 2 weeks. We will be there live in Washington for his historic trip.
And let's hope there's no rain so the Pope-mobile will be open.
Right, that would be nice, and everybody there, right?
Yeah, still ahead on WJZ's Eyewitness News at 5. On edge, in 2 weeks, there have been at least 10 shootings along freeways in Arizona. The search for suspects and a motive.
New York City police officers tackle a tennis superstar to the ground in a case of mistaken identity. I'm Hannah Daniels in New York. I'll have that story coming up.
The country's colleges and universities are ranked. I'm Amy Yancey. Which Maryland schools are among the best? That's next on WJZ.
And taking a live look outside, the sun, we are told it's peeking through the clouds. I don't know, don't see too much of it, but we will have an update in our first warning weather forecast coming up.
Complete coverage continues with Mary Buba, Jessica Cartalia, and first warning weather with Bob Turk.